Hi, I'm Cindy,
I'm Kim.
And I'm Tiffany.
and we are doing a fast video on strange results. So, Kim, what would you consider a strange set of results to be when you've seen other evaluators and you've seen their results? What do you consider strange results to be?
Well, first thing that comes to mind is in the IQ test, high fluid reasoning, and then 1% reading level, and then 98% auditory processing of information, but then 2% writing level. And the parents are saying, I don't get it. He's so smart. What's happening?
Mm.
Tiffany, what do you think of when you hear strange results?
I mean, very that more specifically, but it's more so things are not lining up, if exactly from what their auditory versus their reading, and there's strange numbers that are out of the ordinary versus high numbers and low numbers, and inconsistency maybe.
Yeah.
That's what I would say.
And that's the thing that is the great challenge. Most clinicians are looking for a clear-cut pattern, right? Like if you have high reading comprehension, how can you have low
Hmm.
decoding? Or if
Hmm.
you have high level essay production for content, how do you have low graphomotor skills or visual motor integration
Hmm.
skills? And it is that variability and that inconsistency that in and of itself is diagnostic. And that is the challenge is um, most psychology programs focus on therapy and how do I
Hmm.
help teach talk skills, right? How do I teach dialogue in therapeutic settings versus how do I do differential diagnosis? So many clinicians are kind of like throwing their hands up in the air. And then we go to school
Yeah.
psychs and they have the same challenge of not knowing how to do that differential diagnosis. So it is a challenge to find somebody with the credentialing to go in and interpret what's happening and why. And one of the keys that I think is missing in programs is what I call process analysis. What are the steps required to be able to do a task, and where can
Hmm.
the bottleneck be, and why can you see a low score on one test and a high score on another test?
Yeah.
So, for
Hmm.
example, how can I have a kid with a low score on the coding subtest and yet have a high processing speed because coding is identified as a processing speed measure on
Hmm.
Wechsler scales. So, how does that work? And the answer is there is no test that exists in isolation. All tests measure multiple things simultaneously. And
Hmm.
so, just because the name on it says one thing doesn't mean that's the only thing that it tests.
Hmm.
So if you see scores all over the place and like the clinician's like, I don't know, it doesn't make sense, that in and of itself says something is going on. And that's where
Right.
you as a parent have to find another clinician, have to do a deeper dive. This is why we make these videos, right? Like when you get the befuddling profile that makes no sense, something is there.
So that's that's like the clinician's sophisticated response. And I will just give you as a parent, you're saying, well, what the hell do I do? What the heck do I do? But what I will say is this: your kid is getting straight A's or doing well all the way through fourth grade. Fifth grade, things are slacking off. And then all of a sudden, sixth grade, grades are going down, behavior's going down. Um, and then, but the kid's passing his state, what do you call the state test?
Right, whatever state test,
Yeah.
And the
SBAC in
director,
Washington, whatever. Right.
yeah. And then all of a sudden,
ITBS.
now the kid is a huge behavior problem by eighth grade, and the principal and they find out he has finally find out he has dyslexia, and the principal's saying, "But I don't know." Not the principal, the director of the district is saying, "I don't understand. How did he pass all of his state testing and do so well?" That is your key that the school districts really are not understanding what is going on. But you as a parent need to know your kid did not change because he became naughty.
Right.
Some something's going on here.
And the answer to that is you start supporting your kid. If you can't get your hands on somebody like me, you start supporting your kid. You find somebody who has specialization in learning differences and you get them the support that they need, regardless of what the numbers say. You find the right clinician, you find the right tutor that says, I see your child, I understand behavior is communication. If my child is acting out, they're not getting their needs met, I'm going to support them. And you find the right person that matches their needs and you put the supports in. And there's
That's what I want to tell
resources
parents.
out there, right?
You
Um,
have to pay attention to these details and these
yeah.
changes and patterns.
Tiffany, does that resonate with you and your educational experience?
I think it resonates as well, especially like the students that I have. Like earlier on, it really depends on when they're hitting eighth grade, where a lot of my students fall, are students or people that are my peers when I was back then. And then parents start panicking, they start getting a lot of stress, but not knowing where to get it. So I'm really glad this video would be able to help
Yeah.
others.
But the signs are there, but you as a parent, just because they're getting okay grades in school doesn't mean you have to you have to keep in touch with your child and see what's going on.
And
And
to
being in
support
touch
them.
with your child doesn't mean that your child has to give you 200-word dissert or 1,000-word dissertation on what's happening academically. If they are struggling and you can see that they're struggling, you as a parent have got to step in and listen, support, understand that they can be giving their absolute best and that the school is not meeting them with their needs. And so you have to find ways to support them in that. And that goes to
Mhm.
things like basic accommodations. So if your kid is struggling with writing, you need to scribe. If your kid is struggling with reading, watch the movie before you read the book and then have the book in an audible format. If your kid is struggling in math, pull out the calculator, addition, multiplication chart, have a trigger book that shows the methodology so that they always get it the same way, the same method, and they see it
Mhm.
consistently the same way so they can remember the process. It means you do to help your kid be successful without replacing their learning. You know, kids can still learn by dictating. Many people who are blind listen to books all the time by in an audible format.
Mhm.
You support their learning in a way that is effective for them and you focus on what your child needs.
Mhm.
Every kid wants to do well, and when a parent says you're just being lazy because you don't want to write and you don't want to read, that's a ding ding warning sign. They're not being late. There's something going on.
Yeah.
Mhm.
As we continue to say, behavior is communication. And if your child is not doing something, there is likely underlying issues. And it can be a range of issues, not just learning. It can be mental health issues. It could be medical issues. There can be lots of things. Dive deeper.
Mhm.
And with that,
Yeah.
tell us if this is helpful, and we'll see you soon.